Okay, it is now 6:30, so we'll get started. Good evening, everybody. This is Steve Lionel, Chair of the City of Nashua Zoning Board of Adjustment, and this is the February 24th, 2021 Zoning Board meeting. As Chair of the Zoning Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by Governor Sununu because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the Governor's Emergency Order 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-4 and extended by Executive Order 2021-1, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized to meet electronically pursuant to the Governor's Emergency Order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, we are video conferencing utilizing the Zoom application for this electronic meeting. Public access to this meeting is also provided via Zoom, and a link to the meeting is contained in the meeting agenda available on the city's website. The meeting can be streamed through the city's website, nashuanh.gov/318/CTV, or on Nashua's community link. The public may also view this meeting on Comcast Channel 16. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings and, where applicable, notice to abutters. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at nashuanh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall, assuming you can get in there. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or channel 16, please call 603-821-2049 and they will help you connect. In the event that the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. The chair is in control of the meeting. To the extent practicable and advisable, the board will follow the procedures as identified in its bylaws. The applicant will present the applicant's case, followed by questions by the board. We will allow for a rebuttal period as best as possible for persons wishing to speak in favor or with questions or opposition before the board deliberates and determines an outcome. Normally, the board utilizes a light timer, which will not be available. However, the board and all participants should endeavor to comply with the timeframes of 15 minutes maximum for the applicant and 5 minutes each for anyone wishing to speak in favor or in opposition or with questions. Applicants, their representatives, and individuals required to appear before the board are appearing remotely and are not required to be physically present. Applicants, their representatives, and individuals required to appear before the board may contact the planning department to arrange an alternative means of real-time participation if you are unable to use Zoom. Documentary exhibits and/or visual presentations were submitted in advance of the meeting so that they may be displayed for remote access viewing. Real-time public comment can be addressed via the Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access or by telephone. Real-time comments via audio will be addressed at the conclusion of the public hearing. The public is also encouraged to submit their comments for future meetings via email to the planning department at planning@nashuanh.gov or by mail. Please make sure to include your name, address, and comments. Letters should be addressed to the planning department, P.O. Box 2019, Nashua, New Hampshire 03061. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Zoning board meetings will be held electronically until it has been deemed safe to conduct more typical meetings at City Hall. The zoning board, the planning department, and city staff thanks you for your understanding and patience during this difficult time. Tonight, we will be hearing requests for deviation from the Nashua Zoning Code in the form of applications for special exceptions and/or variances. A special exception is a request that seeks permission to do something that the zoning ordinance permits only under special circumstances. To grant a special exception, 5 points of law are required to be met. These are outlined in the application and will be summarized in board motions. A variance is a request that seeks permission to do something that ordinance does not permit. Variances also have 5 points of law to be met, different from those for special exceptions. Per the City of Nashua bylaws and State of New Hampshire revised statutes, a minimum of 3 or more affirmative votes are required to approve any application. In addition, this board will hear all scheduled cases if a quorum of 3 voting board members are present at this meeting. Any citizen has the right to contest the decision that this board makes. Should we make a decision that you believe is in error, you have the right to request a rehearing. A written rehearing request must be received by the City of Nashua Planning Department within 30 calendar days from the date of decision. Should this board not grant a rehearing request, you can file an appeal directly to the New Hampshire Superior Court. Please contact Mr. Falk of the Planning Department for more information. So for this meeting, we have in attendance myself, Steve Lionel, I am the chair. We have Mr. Jack Currier, who serves as our clerk. We have Mr. J.P. Boucher and Mr. Rob Shaw. And we are all full members. We don't have any of the alternate members tonight. Although we have 4 of the 5 full board members, and that does constitute a quorum. We also have in attendance Mr. Carter Falk, Deputy Planning Manager for the city, Ms. Kate Poirier, Zoning Coordinator, and Mr. Matt Sullivan, Planning Department Director. So let us start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. J.P. Boucher.
I'm present and there's nobody in the room with me.
Rob Shaw.
Present and no one is in the room with me.
Jack Currier.
Present and nobody is in the room with me.
And I am Steve Lionel, and I am present and there is nobody in the room with me. So I will now read the first case into the record. Well, before I do that, Mr. Falk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, no, there are not.
Okay, thank you. First case, owner B&A Construction, address is 32 Groton Road, also known as 8 Airlie Avenue. Sheet D, lot 265-4, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3, to encroach 12 feet into the 50-foot required rear yard setback to construct an attached 12-foot by 16-foot deck. This is in the R40 zone, Ward 5. Is there somebody here to present this case? I'm not hearing anybody.
Mr. Chair, I don't see him. I just texted the applicant to see where they are. So maybe we can go on to case number 2, and if they come on later, we can hear them.
Yes, absolutely. We can do that. Okay. Case number 2. This is owner Christopher, Kathy, and William Focus, Revocable Trust. Address is 8 to 8.5 School Street, sheet 79, lot 30, requesting use variance from Land Use Code Section 190-15, Table 15-1, Item 193, to convert an empty building into a personal storage building. This is in the D1 MU zone, Ward 4. And I see a William Focus here. The floor is yours, sir. You have 15 minutes. Make sure you unmute.
Hi, good evening. Can everybody see me and hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Perfectly. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for taking the time out to listening to me, my request for a variance tonight. I'm seeking a variance to convert the building into a personal storage. This building has been vacant for over 30 years. Before that, it was a commercial kitchen. That as a young man, we did all of our off-premise catering for Martha's Exchange out of this building. As some of you know, this building's been in quite disarray at this point. It needs a new roof, plumbing, electrical, drywall, flooring, windows, and I'm even considering a beautiful mural by Positive Street Arts. My goal is to convert it into a space where I can store personal items. This building in the past has been overrun by vagrants and drug users. We've tried boarding it up. They've always found a way in. We successfully finally boarded it up. I personally think that this will be a major upgrade to the neighboring buildings and to the tenants who are adjacent to this building. At this point, in my mind, anything to improve this building is just a huge plus for the city of Nashua and the local abutters. I'm asking for the variance, and if passed, looking forward to working with the city on upgrading this property. Thank you for letting me speak, and hopefully we will progress and try to make the city better. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any members of the board have questions for the applicant? Did I see a hand raised? Yes, Jack, Mr. Courier.
Maybe I'll actually ask Mr. Focus, or really maybe Mr. Falk, a personal storage building. I was a little mystified by that. Is that different than a storage building?
Well,
I mean, I understand that a personal storage building to me is a storage building that's used for personal use or that of the owner. So that kind of part, that part of it is clear. But is there, I was just curious if this was in somehow like definitionally different than a storage building with the name personal in front of it. I mean, I'm personally fine with the application at this point. I was just curious about that title, personal storage building, if there was a definition of that.
Carter, I'm not sure what the answer is, if you have that answer.
yeah, well, I mean, in our ordinance, there are about 7 or 8 different categories for storage and warehousing uses. None of them are permitted in this zoning district. You know, whether we call it a personal storage or a self-storage unit or just a storage unit, warehouse, it's all really the same thing. He's going to use it as a storage facility. It's a small building. It's about, I think, about 900 square feet in size, 1,100 and some odd square foot lot. But we just kind of advertise it as the way the applicant had it on their application. So
Okay.
we think it's advertised correctly, you know, for what he wants to use it as. So.
All right. Thank you. That was it. I'm all set.
Any other members of the board have questions for the applicant? I'm not seeing any. Okay, and is there anybody here who would like to speak in favor of the application?
Mr. Chair, I see no messages in chat and no hands raised in the participants.
Right. Okay, is there anybody with questions, concern, or opposition to the application?
Mr. Chair, I see none.
All right, in that case, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. And at this point, the board members will discuss among themselves. Mr. Courier, your comments?
I think I'm in favor of the application. I mean, I think it meets the criteria and I think it speaks for itself. Have to say, I've been by this building probably thousands of times and never noticed it until I did a site walk, you know, last weekend. And I'm even looking at the application and Google Maps, and I'm like, what is this place, you know? And when I'm standing there, I'm like, wow, I never knew this was here. And I think the applicant accurately described, yeah, it's in a shambles. And I think given that rather special condition that it's been in such bad shape, but looks like the walls are physically sound, I think that it would be a great improvement to the neighborhood if this is provided, this use variance, and the building is rehabbed, you know, as the applicant is stating. So I'm in favor of it.
Mr. Boucher.
I'm also in favor of it for the reasons that Mr. Courier stated.
Mr. Shaw.
Likewise, I'm in support. I think this is also a pretty modest structure. I mean, I think, you know, when you typically think about self-storage facilities, it tends to me at least, evoke, pretty large undertaking. And this is clearly anything but. And I think it will be an improvement to the neighborhood. So yes, I'm in favor of this.
And I also support the application for the reasons my colleagues have said. Would somebody care to make a motion, please? Mr. Boucher, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the use variance for Christopher J. and Kathy A. and William J. Focus Revocable Trust, owners of 8 to 8.5 School Street, sheet 79, lot 30, requesting use variance from Land Use Code section 190-15, table 15-1, number 193, to convert an empty building into a personal storage building. It's in the D1 mixed unit, MU zone, Ward 4. We find that the use variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of property. Again, stated and by observation that the building is in disrepair, has sat empty for many, many years. And we find that the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. We find that it is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. We find it will not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. In fact, probably will be a definite improvement to the area. It's not contrary to public interest, and substantial justice would be served. So again, I make a motion to approve the use variance.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Mr. Shaw, thank you. Any discussion of the motion? No. Mr. Courier, how do you vote?
Mr. Courier votes in favor of the motion to approve.
Mr. Shaw, how do you vote?
Mr. Shaw votes in favor.
Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
And Mr. Lionel, myself, I also vote in favor. Congratulations. Your use variance is approved 4-0. And please remember that there is a 30-day window of appeal that somebody could appeal this decision. If you have any questions, contact Mr. Falk.
Perfect. I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to me again and look forward to this new endeavor and bettering that whole neighborhood. I appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Billy,
Yes.
Okay. Do we have the applicant for 32 Groton Road here yet?
It appears
No.
not yet.
Not yet. Okay, so we'll go on to case number 3. Owner is SCR Real Estate LLC, Pathik Patel. Applicant is Heron Rodriguez. Address 14A Broad Street, sheet 62, lot 68. Requesting use variance from Land Use Code section 190-15, table 15-1, item 35, to operate a men's barber shop in a portion of the existing building. This is in the GI and RB zone, Ward 4. Do we have somebody to present the case?
Good evening, guys. This is Hiron Rodriguez. I am Noelle Fernandez. Just for the record, our kids are in the background, so we'll mute when we're not speaking.
Would you please give your address, please? I really should have asked.
Is
Focus
it
to
our
do that, too.
home address or the plaza address?
I think the whatever address you want to be contacted at.
Oh, sure. 80 Cypress Lane, apartment 12.
Okay.
And that
thank
is
you.
in Nashua, New Hampshire.
Okay.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay, sorry. So we are in hopes of opening a men's barbershop in that plaza area. We had to request a variance for it, and it would just be to serve the public of Nashua. And the reason I guess we're requesting the variance is it already exists within the plaza, having those kind of businesses, and it wouldn't alter anything to the property itself.
Okay, that's pretty simple. Do you have any other comments to make?
No, I mean, it is pretty simple and straightforward, just a men's barbershop. It differs from what a salon would be like, just because it would be servicing more men in that Nashua area.
Is there an existing business in the unit that you're planning on occupying? Or was there?
No.
Okay.
Nope. It has been closed for some time now.
Thank you. Are there board members that would like to ask a question of the applicant? I am not seeing any questions. Is there anybody here who would like to speak in favor of the application?
Good evening, guys. Can you hear me?
You're very faint, sir. Please give your name and address for the record.
My name is Patik Patel. My home address is 6 Mead Circle, Lexington, Massachusetts. And I'm one of the owners, the partners of SCR Real Estate LLC. And all we're trying to do is get a tenant in, and basically, you know, the space has been empty for about 1.5 years. And it'll be good for the city of Nashua or the community within. And all I would like is for the board to approve the variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in favor of the application?
Mr. Chair, I see none.
Is there anybody with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application?
I see none, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. In that case, I will close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Courier, your comments?
I think I'm supportive of the application. I mean, I think we're here just kind of as a backdrop, because this was the old Whitney Screw Company, which probably predated zoning, and that's where you know, the GI zoning came in this place and kind of has never left. And it's interesting that when this unit and Gooddale's unit was first, you know, purchased there by Brad, and it was converting to retail, there was a lot of opposition in the neighborhood. It's just when I got on the board, because there was a lot of opposition to retail, thinking it would, you know, a lot of noise. In general, when you look back on our minutes that were in our package, you know, the board, I think, generally felt that the retail wasn't as maybe aggressive as the general industrial zone. And I think that's borne out. I mean, I think that there's probably less impact on the neighbors with retail than it was in the good old days when it was a manufacturing facility. But anyway, the zoning, you know, has stayed what it is, and I think it's fine that this proposed retail of a barbershop goes in. It's really completely in keeping with the other kind of businesses that are in that unit now, or not unit, but, you know, the building. There's several units in the building, so I'm good with it.
Thank you. Mr. Boucher, you have comments?
Yes, I also support the application. Pretty straightforward to me. And again, you know, thank you, Mr. Curry, for that history lesson. I'm not from Nashua originally, but it's good to know that. And also, I also noticed that, again, there's a similar type business already existing in that plaza, so I think it fits right in. So again, I'll support the application.
Okay, Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, I'm in concurrence with my colleagues. I think this is, you know, there's already a close to 20-year history now of various retail usage here at this site. This is not an especially intensive use compared to what's already been going on there. And so I think all told, it makes sense, and it's what's basically going on in this property now for quite some time. So again, I'm in support.
Thank you. And I am also in support for all of the reasons noted. I noted that this property has a rich history of use variances, and I don't find that this new variance is going to be any more intensive than some of the previous ones. Would somebody care to make a motion? Mr. Boucher, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the use variance for SCR Real Estate LLC, Pathik Patel, owner, Heron Rodriguez, applicant, 14A Broad Street, sheet 62, lot 68, requesting use variance from Land Use Code Section 190-15, Table 15-1, number 35, to operate a men's barber shop in a portion of an existing building. It's in the GIRB zone, Ward 4. We believe that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property. Again, there is a long-standing, there's a long-standing businesses there. I'm losing the word here.
History?
History of retail business. Sorry, at the property. And we find that the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than variance. We find it is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. We find it will not adversely affect property values of surrounding parcels. Find that it's not contrary to public interest and that substantial justice will be served. So again, I make a motion to approve the use variance.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Mr. Shaw, thank you for the second. Any discussion of the motion? No? Take a vote then. Mr. Shaw, how do you vote?
Mr. Shaw votes in favor.
Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Courier, how do you vote?
Mr. Courier votes in favor.
And I, Mr. Lionel, also vote in favor. Congratulations, your variance was approved. Please be aware there's a 30-day window of appeal. If you have any questions, contact Mr. Falk.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, board. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we'll go on to case number 4 then, because I don't see that.
Chair, I just got a text from the applicant, and he's starting to log on right now.
Oh, he is. Well, he can go on after case number 4. Case number 4, owner Deborah Milne of Revocable Trust, address is 16 Hideaway Road, GG Lot 147, requesting the following variances from Land Use Code Section 190-192, Section C, to exceed maximum driveway width 24 feet permitted, requesting to maintain existing 11-foot wide driveway on Hideaway Road and 24-foot wide driveway on Robin Lane for a total of 35 feet. And 2, variance from Land Use Code Section 190-209, Section C, to maintain a new driveway expansion within 50 feet of an intersection, 47 feet proposed. This is in the R18 zone, Ward 2. Is there somebody here who would like to present this application?
Hello, Deborah Milne, I'm here.
And your address, please?
16 Hideaway Road in Nashua.
Thank you. Proceed.
I'm also here with my partner, Dennis Bonacolta. So this variance is a follow-up to an original variance that I submitted, and it was approved in March of 2020. That variance was basically to take a 1-car garage and convert it into a 2-car garage. When we did that, of course, the driveway, as you see here, was expanded. So all of this work was done. When the inspector came out to inspect it, he noticed that we have another driveway that leads or touches, if you will, Hideaway Road. The expanded driveway that you saw previously touches Robin Lane. So I will say the original home prior to me buying it had a horseshoe driveway. So these two driveways have always been there. I expanded the one to 24 feet to accommodate the second car in the garage. So this driveway, I'd like to maintain.
It's parking space.
Yeah, it's basically a parking space. It's for, deliveries. It's the driveway that touches Hideaway Road. It leads to our front porch and right into the house. So that's our main entrance into our home. And it's always been there.
Okay. Is that the end of your presentation?
I'd say I'd like to comment on the expansion within 50 feet of an intersection. The original driveways were never meeting this code, and there's no way to make that possible. So that's another reason we, requested the variance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any board members that have questions for the applicant? I'm not seeing any hands raised. In that case, I will close the public hearing and, well, nope, before I do that. That's right. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Mr. Falk, you have a comment.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we did get a letter from one of the neighbors.
Ah, yes. I have that and I can read it into the record. Yeah, I have it. Okay, this is was dated yesterday, February 23rd. Dear members of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, with regard to case number 4, my husband and I are in support of the Deborah Milne Revocable Trust request regarding driveways on Hideaway Road and Robin Lane. We have reviewed the documents accompanying the request for a variance and appreciate the care that Mrs. Milne has taken to maintain and indeed enhance the value of surrounding properties while considering the health, safety, and welfare of the public. And this is signed Deborah K. Wolfine, 11 Hideaway Road in Nashua. So that was a letter we got, the board received in support of the application. Is there anybody here who would like to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application?
Mr. Chair, I see none.
See none. Okay, now I will close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Shaw, do you have any comments?
I think this is a totally reasonable request. I'm in support of it. I think, this, and as far as especially like the second variance, as far as the from an intersection, this is about as low a use intensity intersection as probably can exist, generally speaking. Concerns with that is for, kind of traffic safety. So I see absolutely no concern there. And I see no harm from the fact that the way these two driveways are, they're on two different streets as it is. There's no appearance of significant does exist in this regard. So it's a totally reasonable request, and I'm in support of it.
Thank you. Mr. Courier, you have comments?
I think Mr. Shaw captured it all, and I'm in support of it for those same reasons.
Okay. Mr. Boucher.
I'm also in support for the reasons that Mr. Shaw gave. And again, these are kind of really just two dead-end streets, right, that don't go anywhere. And there's just a few houses down the street. So again, main issue is traffic issues. And again, none there that I could even see.
Thank you. And I, Mr. Lionel, I also am in support of the application. These driveways have been there. The distance to the intersection is a very, very small difference from what the zoning calls for. And I don't see that there's any impact to the neighbors. So would somebody care to make a motion? Mr. Shaw, thank you.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion on behalf of Deborah Milne Revocable Trust at 16 Hideaway Road. The request is for two different variances. One is from Land Use Code Section 190-192, Section C, to exceed maximum driveway width, 24 feet permitted, requesting to maintain an existing 11-foot wide driveway on Hideaway Road and 24-foot wide driveway on Robin Lane for a total width of 35 feet. And the second variance is from Land Use Code Section 190-209, Section C, to maintain new driveway expansion within 50 feet of an intersection where 47 feet are proposed, and this is in the R18 zone. The variance is needed for the applicant's proposed use of the property. This basically came about from the addition of the garage and widening of the driveway to accommodate that. The location is at basically the end of a corner lot, but at the end, essentially at one very small street and dead end the other. So any traffic considerations are essentially of no concern and almost nil as far as any concerns there. There'll be no negative impact on the neighbors, and in fact, there's support from one of the neighbors as well. It's within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. There will be no negative effect on surrounding parcel property values. It's not contrary to public interest, and substantial justice will be served. And with that, I move to approve these two area variances.
Mr. Boucher, thank you for your second. Any discussion of the motion? Okay. Mr. Courier, how do you vote?
Mr. Courier votes in favor of the motion.
Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Shaw, how do you vote?
Mr. Shaw votes in favor.
And I, Mr. Lionel, I'll also vote in favor. Congratulations, your variance has been approved. As I've said before, please be aware there's a 30-day window of appeal. If you have any questions, talk to Mr. Shaw, Mr. Falk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.
Okay. So do we now have the applicant for case number 1? B&A Construction,
Yes,
32
Mr.
Groton
Chair.
Road?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, one moment while I read the case into the record. I just wanted to make sure that we had somebody here. Okay, this is cases owner is B&A Construction, address 32 Groton Road, also known as 8 Airlie Avenue. Sheet D, lot 265-4, requesting variance from Land Use Code section 190-16, table 16-3 to encroach 12 feet into their 50-foot required rear yard setback to construct an attached 12-foot by 16-foot deck. This is in the R40 zone, Ward 5. Okay, Mr. Brennan, you may proceed. Please give your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Chad Brandon. I'm a civil engineer with Fieldstone Land Consultants. Our office is located at 206 Elm Street in Milford, New Hampshire. And I just want to start by thanking everybody for their patience this evening. I unfortunately did not have this on my calendar, to be completely honest. So I thankfully am here and presenting, but so we're before you this evening requesting a variance for a rear yard setback encroachment. The project or the subject parcel is known as parcel D 265-4, has an address of 8 Airlie Avenue, and is part of a conservation subdivision that we had recently got approved through the planning board and conservation and zoning board. The proposal is to construct a home on the project or on the property, and when we started to lay out the house, we noticed that the depth of the particular lot, because it's on a cul-de-sac, is reduced really, and in order to provide for the appropriate amenities, we were going to have an encroachment into the rear yard setback. Typically, if you can have, or if you can design a deck where it has a reduced height, if the height was less than 4 feet, then this would actually comply with the city ordinances. But because the topography falls to the rear of this lot, the deck is over 4 feet in height, and as such, we do have to seek a variance for this proposal. This property and this project is somewhat unique in that although we are seeking a relief from the rear yard setback to 38 feet where 50 is typically required, there is a significant conservation area that abuts the property to the rear, which is about 120 feet in minimum in width. So there's certainly no neighbors to the rear of this property. And as such, we believe this request and hope the board would agree that this request is reasonable. We have addressed all of the criteria, and I'd be happy to go through that if the board feels that is necessary. So with that's just a brief presentation, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have at this time.
Thank you. You did, your application did include your responses to the various points of law. Are there any members of the board who have questions for the application? Mr. Shaw?
Just a basic, just wanting to understand roughly how high will the deck be?
The deck is about 8 feet off the ground. The topography is such where this particular home will have a walkout basement. So there will be a door out the rear of the building and so the deck is about 8 or so feet in height.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Courier, you had questions.
Yeah, just wondering, when I went to look, I think none of the houses are built yet. And I was wondering, was there, in trying to meet all the zoning requirements, what was the thought or impact, say, if the deck were built not within that side rear yard setback, say it was on the, move to the, I don't know what we would say, the right as you look at it from the street, and I just wondering if you could speak if what the possibility of that is.
So in this particular instance, the individual that's interested in purchasing this lot has selected really this house design. And I think one of the features of this development that is nice is these lots abut a conservation land out and back that offers a lot of privacy. If you start putting decks on the side of homes, then it really feels like you're hanging out in your or enjoying, in part, your neighbor's property rather than, an undisturbed piece of conservation land to the back. So the desired layout is to have the deck at the, situated in the back of the property. And certainly, this is, one of kind of an unfortunate situation where when we go forward and get these projects approved, we're using, kind of a standard home with maybe a garage positioned on the side of the house, which would give us a little bit more depth to play with for a deck. But, in this particular case, the layout of the home is such where they're really, and it really, I mean, if you look at the plan, there isn't a lot of room when you contemplate the garage in a reasonable home for a deck out the back, off the back of the property due to the topography. So, I mean, I would venture to say that it was somewhat of an oversight in the design and layout on this particular lot because of the topography. But I think the deck is most appropriate on the rear of the home and not facing the abutting properties on the side if it was positioned on the side. It's just my professional opinion.
I guess just a follow-up thought on that is just kind of eyeballing the layout. If the board says would apply that logic, in my mind, the other 2 lots, if not 5 lots on the cul-de-sac, the same maybe argument per se could be applied, like the homeowner would prefer a back deck, and then so I'm just wondering about your professional opinion. If the board were to approve this, are there going to be future requests on many, all, or some other lots for the same situation?
I think the topography is slightly different on the other 2 lots where it's not a walkout basement. So as I stated before, if the topography was such that it was a different scenario, this encroachment is allowed if the deck is only 4 feet off the ground. And the other 2 lots off of the cul-de-sac, I mean, we have positioned homes on those. I mean, there have been people looking at those, and so far there hasn't been a need, and we don't anticipate coming back for relief on those 2 lots. But I mean, nothing's finalized yet, so I can't make any commitments to that level. But what I can tell you is those 2 lots do have a little bit more depth to play with, just because of their geometry off the road, and their topography, I think, puts them in a slightly different scenario.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members of the board with questions for the applicant? No? Okay. Is there anybody here with who would like to speak in favor of the application?
No, Mr. Chair.
And I don't think there's anybody here with questions, concerns, or opposition. Not too many people left here. So I'm not seeing any of those. In that case, I will close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Courier, do you have comments?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm struggling with this application. On one hand, there's a large conservation area behind, but the conservation area is, supposed to be open and undisturbed, and I feel that, the board should be respecting the setbacks, and I find that this application is really we're here because of a personal preference of a probable buyer. A few months after a great amount of relief was provided with a conservation use. So I don't think that, to me, that doesn't constitute a hardship on the land. It's really a self-created hardship. And if you want to try to convince me otherwise, please feel free. But I'm not in support of this application at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Boucher.
I'm going to support the application. I guess I understand the challenge of topography, and I believe that that the applicant's explanation of what's going on there, and again, looking at what the envelope actually is. Again, I think there's a bit of a challenge there, and again, credible with the topography. So again, I understand that if it was 4 feet or less, they wouldn't be here, and that deck would still be sitting there. So I guess in a way, if the topography wasn't an issue, the deck would be hanging there anyways. We're just talking about a height issue. Again, I don't think there's any impact on anyone or any values to that. So again, with that, I think it's pretty straightforward for myself. In my opinion, I'm going to support the application.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw.
I'm in support. I think the key thing for me is when I kind of consider, I think the main aspect of the spirit and intent of the ordinance as far as having the increased setback for a deck that's higher than 4 feet is to essentially address the issue that there's that, potential of like a looming kind of structure when you have that going on. In this case, there's no chance or opportunity for another home or somebody's rear yard to be affected by that, normally abutting property. So in my view, it's really much to address that issue and when that occurs. And I don't see that being a factor here. So I think that gives me a reason to support this.
Thank you. And I recognize Mr. Courier's concerns about, we have this undeveloped piece of land that, as he said, that this came before us last year, and if you just look at what the ordinance says, then it's just personal preference. But I also sort of go with Mr. Shaw in saying that the reason for this part of the ordinance is to avoid impact on neighbors, and there's nothing here. I don't consider the impact to the setback to the conservation land to be significant in this zone, and therefore I'm leaning in support of it. Would somebody care to make a motion? Mr. Shaw, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion on behalf of B&A Construction, the owner, 32 Groton Road, also known as 8 Airlie Avenue, for a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3 to encroach 12 feet into the 50-foot required rear yard setback to construct an attached 12-foot by 16-foot deck. This is in the R40 zone. The variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property. The special conditions of the property are that there is topography off the back of this lot such that the deck will be higher than 4 feet off the ground, which necessitates the larger setback than otherwise is required. And the depth of the building envelope is relatively shallow to begin with on this lot. I do believe that, especially within the spirit and intent of this ordinance, that the increased setback for a raised deck structure is primarily for impact on those neighbors that would be abutting to the rear of the property in this case. But because there is a significant conservation area, there will be a very large distance to the next potentially occupied property. There's no indication of any negative effects on surrounding parcel property values. It's not contrary to public interest, and substantial justice will be served. And with that, I move to approve this area variance.
Do I have a second? Mr. Boucher, thank you. Any discussion of the motion? No. Okay, take a vote. Mr. Courier, how do you vote?
I vote in deny of the motion.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shaw, how do you vote?
Mr. Shaw votes in favor.
Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Boucher votes in favor.
And I, Mr. Lionel, I also vote in favor. That's 3-1. Congratulations, your variance has passed. Please be aware that there's a 30-day window of appeal. If you have any questions, please contact Mr. Falk.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Chad.
Okay. We have no rehearing requests coming up. We have minutes from the February 9th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Anybody see any comments, any issues with them? Have a motion to approve the minutes. Mr. Shaw, thank you for the motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second? Mr. Boucher, thank you for the second. Mr. Shaw, how do you vote?
Mr. Shaw votes in favor.
Mr. Courier, how do you vote?
Mr. Courier votes in favor. I'm sorry, could you repeat who made the motion in the second?
Mr. Shaw made the motion and Mr. Boucher second.
All right, got it. Thank you.
And Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Boucher votes in favor.
And I, Mr. Lionel, I also vote in favor. So that's the minutes. Review. We don't have an agenda for next time, do we, Kate?
We actually do.
Did I forget to CC you on that? I'm sorry. Hold on.
We do have.
I have not seen an agenda for March 9th. I have the meeting invite, but not the agenda.
Got 2 cases on that meeting.
Okay. So we look at this.
Caldwell Road is an ADU, and then
short-term transitional stay facility. Okay. I don't see any regional impact of this. Does anybody else see any?
I do not.
I'm seeing heads shaking. Okay, so no regional impact. Kate, would you please forward that to me when you get a chance?
Of course.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either. Kate, perhaps I missed it. If you could copy me on that.
No, I think I forgot to CC you when I emailed it to the general agenda subscribers. My apologies.
No problem, but it gives me delight now to see there's only 2 cases for the next meeting.
like one.
Right. Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Shaw, second? Mr. Boucher, second. Okay. Any objections to adjourning? I see none. Unanimous consent. We are adjourned at 7:25 p.m.